Howdy, Friars. Welcome to the Foundry Demo Day on December 17th. This is the last demo day before the holiday vacation. So I'm going to start off showing the NIMS, which we've airdropped. I'm very excited about. I'm also very happy that I was able to get to this point before the holidays and just talk very briefly about sort of the next actions and some ideas. And then Skulk and Chris are going to both demo well, not demo, but show off the design for the sale, if I understand correctly, and then talk about sort of the motivations behind some of the decisions there. And then after that, Dog is going to share an idea for Foundry. If I remember correctly, it's basically on bootstrapping, essentially hype and awareness of the Foundry project rather. Cool. All right, let me kick off then. Share my screen. Okay, so yeah, so this is the landing page for NIMS, and I shared all these links on the Telegram. But maybe more excitingly is the actual collection. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a good solution for making these visually distinct. One thing I want to do is at least give them different names that includes their identifiers.
By visually distinct, you mean the ones on the card list page?
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so if I go look at this one, so that is this guy, right? And if I go, let's see, click on these two. This one's mine, by the way. That's my little guy. So if you see him popping up somewhere, that's me. And then if we look at these guys, so that's another guy there. And here's another guy. By the way, Skulk is selling one of his NIMs. If I load here, that's why we have a floor price of 2 Ether. So we look at this guy, and this is the one that Skulk is selling. Is that one of the ones I just opened, by the way? No.
I just want to say that price, I believe, is in Polygon and OpenSea. We've had several discussions about how great the OpenSea interface is.
My lord, yeah.
That is 2 Poly, so which is only about $5, I think.
Okay. Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, they're I'm not really happy with them, to be perfectly honest. They like if you look at the Alpha NIMS collection, just by deploying a contract with the name field set to Alpha NIMS, we've claimed the whole Alpha NIMS namespace, which is, I mean, that's cool. I'm happy about that, but I don't know what will happen, for example, when we airdrop to Arbitrum. By the way, there'll be another set to the same addresses on Arbitrum. So everyone that got one from Polygon will also get a different one on Arbitrum, and they should both.
We definitely doing that?
I don't see a reason why not to. And then we'll close the minting on Arbitrum as well. So then we know that there's never going to be any more minted, at least for this set, on Polygon and on Arbitrum. And it should be that will show up as well on OpenSea. Anyway, so as I was saying, one thing I would like to do is get these to be more visually distinct on the preview image, but that is a bit more complex. So in the meantime, I think the low-hanging fruit is I'm just going to make sure that their name here at least shows their identifier, so 0x, whatever, just so that you can tell at least that they are distinct and they're not just copies of the same thing. I also don't know why they just haven't loaded the images for some of this. You'd think they'd load the image for the whole set, but the preview image, that is. Anyway, so that is, yeah, that's what's going on. We have 2.3K items. That's because there are about 2.3K addresses that qualified for the airdrop, which again was anyone that had held Fry at all anytime before the snapshot, which was a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, and then this landing page, I'll be adding to this, I think, over the holidays, just giving more information about the future plans. And then just to briefly go over that before I hand it over to Skulk and Chris. This is the alpha set. We're never going to mint more of the alpha set other than maybe the Arbitrum drop. And then the next set that we will release is going to be at least a small visual improvement. And then after that release will be the beta set, which will have an open-ended auction. This is still somewhat under discussion, but they'll be much more visually improved. For example, the eyes here could look way cooler. The ears as well, and we can do things with the color scheme. There's lots of ideas for the visual design, which I'll probably talk more about as people ask and as I talk more about the project. But yeah, the beta set is what I'm excited to work towards. And that one exciting thing of that is we could have a never-ending auction, but that's rate limited. So they're still rare, but you're always seeing new NIMS. And just one last thing I'll point out here is I just love this number. So this is consuming, as I say here, the goal here for the beta NIMS would be to consume a full 256 bits of entropy, which would make them as uncollidable and effectively infinite as hashes. This version consumes just almost exactly half that, actually. I didn't realize how close that was to half. No, it's not. It's a little less than half. Anyway, and then that gives you this many visually distinct possibilities. So that's just super cool and exciting. Yeah, I think that's all I have to talk about now for the NIMS. Other than I'll just also say, I think that one of the exciting applications for this is the metaverse, because they are 3D. I don't, there's a lot of things we could work on with this, and I'm my sort of meta plan around all the ideas is to get validated on community hype. Do people care about this? Do we get people to join the Discord? And then actually talk to the community about what specifically they're excited about, and then inform the next actions from there. So yeah, that is it for the NIMS.
And we have a Discord that people can join to chat about this for the NIMS thing. Will you add that to the show notes?
Yes, I will add that to the show notes. In fact, let me stop sharing now. I'll just make a note of that so I don't forget.
Yeah, I just want to point out that for those of you who may have noticed that Logan, despite being an American, is using the European standard for quintillion.
It just sounded like a better number. 1,000 quintillion, like that goes into my brain and means something more than the like the technical term, which was a decillion or something like that.
Yeah,
it just sounds more intimidating. Plus, I have the one with all the zeros, so I think I've gotten as far as we can get with just an intuitive understanding of how big that space is.
I just enjoyed what's the term, busting your chops about the quintillion versus the quintillion versus the decillion.
Yes.
But
what was I going to write? Sorry, I forgot the note to put in the show notes.
The Discord, a link
Discord,
to the Discord for the NIMS, and I think you need to share the Discord for the NIMS again in our Telegram.
I will do that. Yeah, I'll do that. To Telegram too. Okay, cool.
Maybe
that's me. Yeah,
could
go ahead.
we add that to the description on OpenSea as well for the set?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, that would be as well.
For the Discord, yeah. Cool. Yep.
All
right.
Yeah, Logan, I just want to say, when we started the whole NIM idea, I was quite skeptical about getting it over the finish line, but I think you did a really good job at pushing it that last bit, and also helping us to try and cash in on the hype with the whole NFT thing. So yeah, kudos, man, and well done with the NIMS. I think it's really looking very promising and a very good starting point.
Yeah, thanks.
For the governance, and getting it on the last day of our last demo day of 2021. It's cool to be able to show it actually.
Yeah. Well, it was, I'll just say it was very psychologically challenging, because I had this idea of what it was going to look like. And then all of the anxieties coming up about like, you don't know what you're doing. You're just an imposter. So I really had seriously had to I literally walked up a mountain a couple of weeks ago just to get my head sorted and try to approach it still. Anyway, it's a long story, but hey, here we are. I'm happy with it.
Randomness was very, very difficult to build at the end of the day.
Yeah.
One does not simply consume randomness.
No, it's not simple. Yeah. Entropy, better word, consuming entropy.
Oh yeah, entropy, that's good.
Cool. All right, on to you guys.
You can enable the screen sharing. I'll quickly do my part.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing I want to share is we built a page for how to use the governance. It's just because if we have less technical fry holders that want to actually partake in the governance of the DAO, we wanted to add a nice explainer for how to do that. So it's very weird that the menu item isn't showing on master, though the page is live. That's a small issue I noticed now. But anyways, you can go to foundry.com/how-to-use-governance and you'll reach the page. But yeah, it's just a nice page that shows all the steps and the details involved. And yeah, that's it for that page. Nothing much there. Then we have finished the governance UX entirely. So this is what the latest UX looks like. When you come to the governance and you connect a wallet, it actually loads your Fry balance. Now, the wallet that I'm on currently has some fake Fry, so I don't really have the 500,000 Fry in here, but on the live governance, it will show the actual balance. The first step you have to do is, well, if you look at the how to use governance page, you first need to buy the Fry and then bridge it to Polygon. Once that's done, you go to the governance, connect the wallet, you turn that Fry into GFry, and then you delegate to yourself and you can then vote and create proposals. So you have to do this. So while your fry is gFry, you can't sell the fry. It's gonna staked if you want until you or convert it back from gFry into normal fry. So that creates a nice locked period there for the fry. So just to show this off, if you click fry to gFry, it will show this pop-up and just saying, you know, you're going to convert non-fry to gFry. Do you want to confirm? If you click confirm, the MetaMask pop-up will come up, which I don't think you guys can see. Not going to do that right now, but you can also see this nice sort of transaction completeness step at the top. Now, since I canceled the transaction, you can see it just says not completed, please try again. So yeah, it's going to guide you all the way through to converting, delegating to yourself, and then partaking in the proposal. So that's also quite a nice, you know, point to end the governance for the year, and at least a fully working UX with all the necessary stuff.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in with 2 notes here. One is that, of course, you can delegate to somebody else if you want and give them your voting power. So you delegate to yourself, obviously, if you want to make a proposal or vote on things directly. The other thing I'll note is that we have at the top there, create DAI payment proposal. So that's just to, we put that in there specifically so that you don't need to be a Solidity expert to, you know, propose sending funds to somebody, because that will be the vast majority of what a DAO wants to do. They want to pay for something. So just wanted to point that out quickly.
Cool. Yeah, the next thing is the lever curve sale that we've been working on. In the background, we're also working on the contracts and tokenomics and all the heavy lifting of actually making the dashboard work. So we've already started building the UX, we've built the groundwork, all the basic stuff, such as connecting the wallet and the styles of the buttons. That's all done. And then we're also working on building the back end of this and actually making it functional. So I'll leave most of it to Skulk, but I'll briefly show just the overview of the dashboard. And then maybe Skulk, as you explain, we can go through all the parts again. But this is where we'll be building an actual landing page website for Leverly as well that explains, you know, this is a generic platform for longing and shorting basically anything that's available on the loan market with each other. So, you know, we'll explain all of that on the website. But also when you land here wanting to use it, we really wanted to make it more intuitive than, you know, I think the fry sale currently is. It gives a lot more information and it's interactive and has links to all the references and the pages and that kind of stuff. So yeah, Skulk, do you want to maybe explain your stuff, and then
I think leave it on the if you don't mind, then I'll just demo here. Okay, so very briefly, I just want to go through what the lever sale is. So the lever sale is the system by which we will be creating lever tokens. Essentially from the, so what is the lever token? So the lever token is sort of like the governance token, and also by implication, the treasury token of the Lever DAO. So once this whole system is live, unlike Foundry, it'll basically go from 0 to 10 instead of from 0 to 0.1, like we had to do with Foundry before we had lots of the components built. So the idea here is that you
is that 0 to 10 in terms of functionality, or in terms of
0 to 10 in terms of functionality on to being a decentralized, onto being a true DAO.
Right. Okay.
Right. So one of the, so in no specific order, some of the issues that we had was obviously like getting a reliable form of governance out. Now, we haven't built the full governance that we wanted initially in our white paper yet, but we do have governance that you know, you can make proposals, you can delegate, you can push those proposals through. So basically what happens with the lever token is that if you come to the sale and you just provide it with Ether, it's a far simpler system. I think the complexity was one of the barriers to entry for the Fry system. Essentially all you do here is you just give it Ether and it immediately gives you lever tokens back, right? And this system also will be running on Arbitrum, so the gas fees will be much lower, so we should get far higher participation. Now, the thing is, what happens in the background here, and that's really just the part that I wanted to cover on. Every time you give it Ether, it increases the price at which it's willing to give you more lever tokens out, right? So the more Ether we, in other words, raise, which is represented by this area here, the higher the price essentially per lever goes. And that money doesn't go into a treasury like it did with Foundry. Essentially what's going to happen there is that money goes straight into a permanently locked productive liquidity pool. So that pool is essentially four things. It's lever tokens, it's DETH, it's ETH, and it's the RISE stablecoin. Right. So just as the price of Ether fluctuates, that liquidity pool will continue to grow, similar to how our permafrost pools have been growing. And then what happens is that some amount of tokens, every time tokens get minted here, also get sent to the treasury for the Lever DAO. And that's actually the tokens that the Lever DAO has to spend. Right. So in other words, when it has to pay contractors or salaries or wants to pay for advertising or anything else, it's got to take it out of that. Now, the thing is, those lever tokens are backed by their own permanently owned liquidity, right? So nobody can ever rug pull this liquidity, not us, no one, right? This stuff is going to be permanently locked in place. And just another last point on that, on the supply of lever as well, is unless somebody comes and buys more lever, which causes more liquidity to be permanently locked away in productive pools, there will be no extra lever. Right, so it's not like there was a situation with the Fry sale where it was possible, it was actually possible for considerable amounts of time to buy Fry at a lower price than it cost any of us early participants in Team Toast to actually get Fry. For long periods, you know, people actually paid less than we paid. So with this thing, there's no chance of that. Whoever basically buys this, either buys it on the secondary market against the liquidity, or alternatively buys this from the sale at a higher price than the previous guy bought it. So the thing just there is that the only people who could possibly sell are people who've been exposed to risk in the project for longer than you. And part of the reason, this is my last point here, part of the reason for that is just basically that the Fry sale had the unintended consequence of arbitraging the liquidity from Uniswap and those places out against the sale. And that really did seem to hurt a lot of the early participants that we got. With this system, essentially, if we see that kind of a spike, there's always a cushion in the permanently locked liquidity that will grow in proportion to the amount of people who have now entered the thing. Right. I'll make more descriptive videos, you know, at a more leisurely pace about that specific quality of it. But that's really one of the things that I feel is massively differentiates this from every other governance token out there.
Cool. If I could just summarize one thing you said and make sure I understand it. You said, I think what I heard you say is that basically there will never be a point at which there's a bunch of lever out there and no liquidity to support the selling of that lever, right? So like at time zero, of course, there's nothing. And when someone buys a little bit in, then there's a little bit of liquidity. And if there's a huge spike, then there will then by consequence be a huge pool of liquidity so that the spike can't just drop back down like it's done with Fry a couple of times. Is that fair?
That's very close to exactly it, yes.
Okay, cool.
So in other words, the math, okay, so I'm going to put an asterisk here and I'll explain it in future in more detail. But the thing is, assuming no other activity, assuming only the sale. So in other words, we sell from zero to what we haven't decided on the exact number, but let's say we sell from zero Fry to a billion, well, zero lever to 1 billion lever, right? The thing is, the last lever sells for permanently locked liquidity. And if we look at the total raised over the whole period, the average price can never be lower than 25% of the amount raised. So the impact there is that when the last guy sells his last lever, there's still permanently locked liquidity for lever tokens.
Cool.
Right. So in other words, even if everyone sells, the price can only go down to 25% of the average raise.
Nice.
But again, if in a future video, when I have more time, I'll discuss how that is accomplished. So, and it's not weird or moon math or anything. It's just the fact that we lock the liquidity away forever.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we could just recap on the marketing dynamics of why we're doing this and currently not pursuing the marketing of the Foundry products. We believe that, well, part of the lever will be given to. Yeah.
I'll just jump in quickly. Just I think it's, and you might be about to get to this, but some people watching this might be looking at this and being like, oh, you're abandoning the DAO raising, the fundraising that didn't work, and now just going to fundraise another thing. So I just want to make the connection that Foundry will, as part of every sale that happens for Lever, Foundry gets some of those Lever tokens. So we do have that economic connection there firmly in place for anyone who's holding Fry and worried we're abandoning that, that investment. So yeah, so go ahead, Chris.
Every Lever token sold, the Foundry DAO gets some Lever, right? So yeah, so I think, we did an analysis of why the sale and Foundry didn't work out the way we wanted it to, and I think part of the reason is the fact that we tried to market a sale and products at the same time, and actually require two different teams. You require a team that, for instance, markets a product such as Smoke Signal. How do you get people to use this platform? How do you get them out of their daily habits? As opposed to somebody marketing the value proposition of buying Fry. And we try to do some of them at the same time. And I don't think our approach at this stage, or our approach wasn't focused in the way in which we wanted to be focused. And so we're thinking that our best shot with the time left, which is the end of February next year, is to focus everything on Leverly and give Foundry this incentive, because Leverly has a very clear value proposition. It's a platform where anything available on a loan market that we interface with can be longed and shorted against each other in a very easy interface. Now that you don't have to have technical knowledge of smart contracts and stuff, you can put two pairs together, create a token, and anybody else can now do that same longing or shorting. So there is really a clear value proposition. And as more and more things are represented by tokens in real life, NFTs and stuff can eventually also be added onto the platform and done in the same way. So it's got a very clear value proposition, and we believe with the resources, our chance of success doing that and giving Foundry a potential incentive, or definitely an incentive, but an incentive that's potentially worth a lot in value, is a better chance of success for the DAO. So just I did explain this on a message in the Telegram as well, but I thought maybe just run over it again. Yeah, so very briefly, like the thing is, instead of trying to sell both the product, so we already have DETH as a product, and again, in a future video, I'll link us to how DETH is involved in the permanently locked liquidity. But instead of trying to sell the product and the promise of the product at the same time, which is actually two very different exercises, as we found out with Foundry, we're going to sell specifically the promise of Lever, like what can Lever actually do, and do it in such a way that if anybody ever doesn't like our plan, they're in control of everything in such a way that they just stop funding us.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Yeah. So another way to put what Skulk just ended on is, with Foundry, it's taken us so long to build the DAO that we've been the de facto development firm for Foundry for so long. And with Lever, at time zero, basically, it will immediately and always be in control of whoever threw the money in. Proportional to how early you got in, of course, with the curve sale. And so if that DAO entity that pops up then wants to continue paying me or Skulk or Swift Chain to continue, they will. And if not, they can go find someone else. So that's a kind of a nice insurance, I think, that we can give to the Lever token holders. Yep. Cool. All right. Anything else, or shall we hand it over to Dog to say his piece?
It's your dogs.
Yeah, I just had a question to the Leverly thing. So, because I didn't quite understand. Yes. So the Leverly DAO, does it have a treasury? Is the treasury filled, and how is it filled from each sale? I didn't understand that.
Okay, so basically what happens, and again, I think I'll do several videos just explaining how we end up implementing everything. But so every Lever token goes only to people who productively earned Lever, right? So technically what happens is the sale receives Ether, and then it takes the Ether and it sends that into a balancer pool, where the balancer pool essentially contains DETH, ETH, and RAI. So the stable coin RAI, which is also like make the argument for why it has more longevity than DAI, for instance. And Tether, that's what's in the pool essentially. And then every time somebody mints any lever, some lever also goes to the Leverly DAO, which is controlled by lever tokens, right? So in other words, people can then, as the thing increases, they can then take those lever and they can give them to other participants who can then sell them into the liquidity to actually do things. And there's also a faucet mechanism, which takes some small inflation per year and throws, every time you poke the faucet, it basically dunks some lever back into the DAO, right? So the idea is that all of that combined, the productivity of the pool should be higher than that faucet amount, right? So that's the treasury that it has. But the implications as a lever holder is basically, you always know there's liquidity, right? So you have a very comfortable range of time to check out. If the last guy, if everyone sells, right, the average price raised by the sale, which could obviously differ very much for the last guy versus the very much from the last guy to the first guy, but the average raise will never see the price drop below 25%, right? So the idea is that you always have something to exit into, somewhat proportional to the point maybe where you entered. So that's the idea of how the treasury management works there. So it's sort of like establish a very strong base of liquidity and then essentially use the issuance of lever tokens at a rate smaller than the treasury should grow at a conservative pace to fund the operations of the DAO.
And the funds paid to contractors or anybody working for the DAO will actually be lever tokens. If they wanted US dollar, they could then trade those tokens for the US dollar, and there would always be liquidity for them to do so.
Yeah.
So that would be the value for them, or the payment mechanism as well. Similarly, I believe in the way in which Uniswap pays is in Unitoken.
Yeah, so the reason that you might accept payment in Uni tokens is because you know you have very good liquidity to sell into. For any smaller DAO, the problem is you don't have the liquidity.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really getting
so they're saying, we'll pay you in Fry, but we don't really have the liquidity if you want to trade that. But in this case, the way the sale is built will always allow you to have the liquidity to actually sell it.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand now how the funding works for the DAO and some of the mechanics around the lever token. One thing that I'm not sure about is, what do you think of the following statement? As long as lever token actually has some form of use, meaning that it's actually being used to fund activities within the universe of the lever DAO, there is continuous selling pressure if we assume that the lever token is meant to be swapped for something else because somebody needs it for something else. What other mechanisms exist that would actually lead to any sort of not buying pressure for the lever token after the sale has concluded? Maybe I have a misunderstanding here somewhere.
How do you mean buying pressure for the
buying pressure? I mean, so the way I understood the introduction to the sale is that the sale is it has a starting and an end date, and throughout the sale, Foundry as a DAO is partially funded from every sale, and Leverly DAO itself is funded partially from every sale. But all the ETH raised goes to a permanently locked liquidity pool together with the corresponding amount of lever. That's what I understood. Is that correct?
That is close to correct.
It doesn't have.
Okay.
So there's no end date. So
okay.
The curve will run until it finishes its entire sale, right? So we're going to set it very, very optimistically high as to where it could end. But if it ends in a year's time or in 5 years' time, and the reason for that is we don't know when things go viral. Things went viral for Fry at least 3 times. And we had, in my view, we had some difficulty capturing that, that hype, right? So there was one day where there was $1.6 million traded in Fry. Now, the thing that would happen with the lever system is if that kind of price spike happens, even if you're not aware of the primary market on the curve sale, somebody will arbitrage that and permanently increase the liquidity. right? So in other words, it won't be a situation of a bunch of people entered and then they had a 99% drawdown 3 weeks later, right? So that kind of thing would be impossible. The second thing is the liquidity is not simple, right? It's not simplistic in the sense of only having Lever and Ether. It has Lever, Ether, RAI, and ETH on it. So if the price of Ether relative to anything else basically fluctuates up and down, there will be trade there. Now, our permafrost pool on FRI outperformed FRI and Ether by 30% model. So in other words, if you held FRI and you held Ether in equal amount, you would have, in either scenario, been 30% better off after less than a year of the permafrost than you would have been if you just held the two of them, right? So our thinking there is that, well, if we have a conservative inflation rate that goes straight into the Dow of, let's say, 10%, then the thing is essentially that liquidity should outperform just that inflation rate. So, and keep it stable. But if it doesn't, if the Lever people don't like it, right? So in other words, if they have zero interest in continuing building out the rest of the Lever products or anything to that effect, then that pool still can't be moved. So that pool will continue to churn and will continue to grow and will continue to, by implication, pull in a lot of money. And if the operators of the DAO don't want to spend the money on anything, they're welcome to burn it. So they're welcome to burn the Lever tokens.
Like the DAO can decide that, okay, this faucet that's pointing 10% at us, we're just actually going to burn that for tokenomics reasons.
Okay. Okay.
And then I'll add one more thing as well, which for me, the tokenomics stuff with the pool and the liquidity fees, my eyes glaze over a little bit. For me, the more comforting aspect of the project is the core product of the. I don't think we have a name for the product specifically yet. I call them long short pairs or LSPs in my head, but it's what Skulk is currently building that basically expands what DETH does. So DETH is a long ETH position that's tokenized. What Skulk wants to build now that will direct its profit into the Leverly system is a generalized long short pair where you can take, for example, anything on Aave to long and short and put them together. And now you have this position that's a tokenized long or short position, depending on how you look at it. And then that will generate fees that either, I don't know if we've really worked out the specific tokenomics, but we can use the fees to sort of, point that economic value, I suppose, back into the Lever system. So for me, that's the more comforting or exciting part of that plan.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. Obviously, I missed a few things about the details of Lever. Maybe I didn't read up on them or just didn't hang around Discord or Telegram enough. One question though. What are the benefits of holding Lever to Lever holders? Is it like some dividend idea behind it, or am I still in the dark?
Okay, so the primary, so everything I described in the sale is just purely to counteract the extremely shitty economics of governance tokens, right? So governance tokens really, like, there's very little safety net for the people who buy the stuff. Right. You need liquidity. The liquidity is typically mercenary liquidity where people you give out the token to get liquidity, which people then just turn around and sell. So it's a very, very shitty proposition for holders of the thing. So we're not renting any liquidity. We're only buying liquidity. Right. So everything I just described is just to counteract it's a ship with a shitload of leakages in it. Now, the question you have is, why would you want the ship to start off with? Right. So
wait. So you're saying we're building a ship without these leakages? That's what you mean to say?
Yes, we're building a ship without these leakages, without these very obvious problems, right? Because I feel everything we did in Foundry was very useful, but we had massive holes in the tokenomics that just constantly was a drag on us, which worked for EOS and for X, but they had marketing budgets, many orders of magnitude above what we had, right? So the thing is, basically what we build now is we build something where we don't have that negative tokenomics. We don't have inverted tokenomics, like literally the reverse of positive tokenomics. We just have something that, okay, there's some safety built into the ship. Now, the next question is, okay, you have a ship, so what? What are you going to put on the ship? And what we're going to put on it is basically these tokenized long short positions, right? So the idea eventually is that once everything in the world is tokenized, you can go, you know what, farm real estate is going to go through the roof and commercial real estate is going to fall through the floor. So you can then say, okay, well, I'm going to put down these, securitized, tokenized agricultural tokens, and I'm going to borrow commercial real estate tokens against them, sell those and buy more of this, right? So I long the one and I short the other. And Lever itself will be the system by which you create these tokens, and Lever will earn some percentage of people entering and exiting those trades, similar to how they do currently in DETH.
And I'll just jump in and say, I mean, that's quite a longer term vision. Just to make it much more grounded in what we can do, what we will do soon, is that just take any Aave token. So that could be, so for example, DETH longs ETH against DAI by default. Well, with what we're going to build soon, you could do the reverse of that. So you could long DAI against ETH, for example. You could long DAI against USDT if you think USDT is going to collapse and make a lot of money. What other tokens are on Aave, Skulk?
Well, let's take a simple one. You think Sushi is going to do well versus Uni. I'm speaking under correction if Sushi is on there. But so you could put down Uni as collateral, loan Sushi, sell the Sushi, and buy more Uni.
And of course, as the user, you're not doing those steps, really. You're just saying, I want to long X against Y, and then in the background, it puts the position together for you, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I understand those mechanisms, but how is the Lever token involved? Do I need it to do these things? Do I need to lock Lever somehow to enable this? What's the
connection to Lever? Yeah.
So the mechanism, okay, so at the moment, the way that DETH works is DETH has built into it a fee, and that fee accrues to Fry's value, right? So whenever somebody mints or unmints DETH, that goes to permanently locked liquidity for Fry. So the same thing will happen here. So Lever will have that as a mechanism, and the Lever token itself, so currently Fry, it's still somewhat centralized, but currently DETH settings can still be adjusted. So the idea is that in some of those pools, there are starvation points, basically. So you want it as decentralized as possible, and you want some mechanism of last resort to say, okay, well, the settings of this pool now need to be altered to actually pay the guys out because it's now fallen below for instance, it's fallen below the gas threshold to be functional. That might be one thing, basically, but it'll be the governance token of that system. So it'll control some how can I say, some knobs of last resort on parameters on the contracts of last resort. That'll be one of the things. And the other thing is it will have built that system, and it will have built in some, feasible fee system for itself on there. So that's the thing. In terms of it being critical, that's a big challenge. If you can find us a way of being absolutely, how can I say, crypto economically indispensable, that's always something good that people are looking for. So so I would say it controls the parameters, gains a fee. But if your question is how is it crypto economically impossible to remove the Lever token, we don't necessarily have an answer for that one.
Okay, no, thanks, Jacques. I think I've had my questions answered, but please go ahead.
I think the original question though was, what's the value in buying the Lever token? If you go to an investor, how do you convince them to buy $10,000 of Lever tokens? And I think there is the one value proposition is that it's a governance token that will grow in value and also give you interest if you obviously stake it. But the main mechanism of the Lever token is eventually going to be to govern the Leverly DAO. And if you believe there is value in a platform that can generically long and short stuff against each other, and you believe you want to be part of the governance there, then that's the value of the token, because being part of the governance will eventually allow you to say, I want to long cars against buses because I believe that public transport is going to become more popular and cars aren't. And I believe the platform should add these tokens to it, and then governance will happen to decide whether it should or not.
Well, So let me jump in there, because governance is more of a job than a payoff. So for me, again, it's more about the fact that the platform that we build, long and short products, will take a fee, and that fee will then go into the Lever tokenomics. A simple example would be that it collects the funds in a thing that when it's poked, it takes all the ETH or whatever the funds it gets, goes and buys Lever and burns it. That's a very simple one to understand. So it's that kind of stuff. I think we're going to do something a little bit more complex with buying liquidity, because that raises the price and increases liquidity. But for me, that's the crucial link, is that, again, as with Skulk's metaphor, we're talking about a boat we've built without these holes. But what goes on the boat, for me, what goes on the boat is the long short pair thing. And then specifically that takes a fee that will point directly back into it through some sort of tokenomics, although not too complex. It will raise the price of Lever or introduce buying pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
What he said.
Interesting. It's a very interesting what Lever can and will be doing in the future. Yeah, I think I just need to process this a little bit. So thanks for answering all my questions, actually, guys. I hope there will be something to read, Shalak. I'm not sure if you're going to make like a big write-up, or if there is one that I didn't see.
Yeah, I'm making several write-ups. There are a few rudimentary ones, but I'll be making a few proper presentations and stuff as we progress, just in getting the actual product up, and we'll make a big hoo-ha about it before it launches.
Awesome, great, cool. So I have no further questions. Since I guess I'm the only other person in the call, I think I can take the word on the topic that I wanted to bring up. Just let me take a look at my notes. So I'll just make it very simple in the interest of time. So Foundry as a community had hype problems in general over the course of the past year and a bit. And a lot of people in the community have, in the Telegram specifically more than in the Discord, have been, asking for a way to solve the problem, asking for a way for attention to somehow come from somewhere. I don't want to say that I analyzed the problem, but I see the problem and I observed certain things. I observed that one of the, one fact is that Foundry DAO and the people involved in it, which includes you, us, and some, let's say, more active members in the community, I'm not sure how many bridges actually exist. I just perceive in terms of the conversations that I have in other Discords and other communities, is that Foundry is like a little bit out there. It's like this hacienda in the desert where you need to take like a 4-hour or 5-hour drive, and it's super nice and has its own spring, but just getting there is a bit of a problem. And people don't know about it, right? And getting people to know about it is not a simple thing, right? You can make noise on Twitter, but if it's not organic, if it's artificial noise, it doesn't really work. There needs to be some form, some way for people to just, if they cannot internalize the vision, understand it and carry it outward wherever they go, which is what I do. And we need more people that actually do that, right? More people that are hyped up and take the hype with them wherever it is that they go. And giving them some sort of a tool in their mind, because it's all just about software in the mind, that makes them take that extra step, or those extra 2 steps in whatever it is they do online in the crypto world, to actually build those bridges between Fry and everything else. And I thought of a way, or I think there is a mechanism that other DAOs use for something a little different, but it could work for the Foundry community and any other community that comes out of this. Speaking of Liberty here, that could work to just incentivize people internally again to just actually go that extra mile and talk about Fry more, because people, even those who are just really interested in dumping the token as soon as it actually increases in price, they make up a lot of communities everywhere, right? So it's not just about ours, it's about every other community as well. Thing is, how do you build those bridges if you don't have that attention? I think one of the systems that bigger DAOs use for, you could say rewarding it, but it's a mixture between an activity logging kind of solution and also a reward mechanism. And it's the idea of Okay, I'll just give a specific example. So the Token Engineering Commons and Commons Stack, which are two very big DAOs that are focusing on using just token engineering principles to drive the common good, whatever the common good is. And they are using something that's called Praise. Not sure if you heard of it. They use Praise is basically a continuous retroactive funding mechanism, if you want to think of it this way. And it's a really nice it's a really nice hack for human behavior, in the sense that people inside a community just in an off-chain way praise other people by just mentioning them in a particular channel that is monitored by a bot. The bot just records, okay, person A or user A has praised user B, and just for perpetuity keeps recording this. And in regular intervals, for instance, every month there is a fixed budget that is then actually paid out to everyone who has been praised for a given month, and then the counter is reset. That's one thing that I've seen. What is the reason for this? The reason for this is that instead of creating fixed incentives, deciding what should be rewarded in a bounty system, you let the community decide. So the community, so the process, the interests of the community that are not surfaced in a tangible, in a formal way, are still present when such a mechanism exists, but they are very scalable. So scalable in the sense that which the community deems to be most important, and by accident or social engineering somebody else has done, the community rewards it in a way that costs them almost nothing. It costs them maybe 10 seconds. But there is this consciousness of everyone who has read the first 2 minutes of Discord rules, and that such a system exists, meaning that certain behaviors other people would, in terms of their own dopamine system, not do, because they don't see an advantage in it, because they are in 10 communities and they want all of their tokens to go up in price, and they focus on the one where it's the easiest, right? Once they have such a mechanism on top, there is a high likelihood that they would engage in more behaviors, and more things could happen that we cannot predict, which gives the DAO as such the possibility, advantage to take advantage of, I'm looking for a word to describe this, something like unpredictably large upsides, because you don't know what's going to happen. What could happen? It could be an invite to, okay, Joe Rogan's podcast. Not going to happen, but just an example. These kind of things are something that I think would be valuable for us to just enable people to do without being pushy, just giving them an organic way. I mean, I try to do these things just out of my own thing when my day-to-day doesn't weigh me down too much. But having this mechanism, I think, would actually improve things. Obvious downside for the DAO is that some form of these expectations need to be believable, right? So if you just say that well, we're going to do this thing, and maybe in the future we're going to drop some tokens to people who actually used this kind of praise-based system. If that's not believable, people won't do it. So that's basically the one challenge that an organization that wants to use such a system would face. So yeah, just to summarize what I said, because I said a lot of things from a lot of perspectives. A perpetual retroactive funding mechanism for community activities that are for the benefit of the community, or whoever is involved in the community, appear to be a good way, in my opinion, to allow a spark of hype, which happens every now and again, to actually sustain itself longer. That's my idea.
Yeah, no,
I really, really like this idea.
yeah, and I can also say that I've been watching Metagame, another DAO, and Discord, and they seem to. It's so funny because they're apparently obscure, and I didn't understand how they could be so goddamn obscure. Like it's almost like they're riddling you when you ask them how to use something. Like they're being all what's the word, I don't know, shy about it, and yet they still get this interest to sustain a lot of activity, and they use this system, and it feels like the engine that they use to sustain this very attractively decentralized way of motivating and valuing community members for effort. And I was on one of their calls, and I was asking them about this, and I asked, like, do people make money on this? Like, they give out these seeds, and these seeds have a certain valuation, and they were basically saying, like, well, we don't know of many people who are using this, like doing this as their full-time job. but yeah, it is sustainable for people to spend their time doing this. And yeah, just a last note, I really like I don't think you use the word gamify dog, but we've used that word back and forth a couple times. And I think that this is a great example of that, gamifying. You gamify it, you hook it to their dopamine systems. And I also love the idea of the aspect of, you encourage good things for the product without having to define what those are. You said something about it being unpredictably positive. So yeah, I love it.
So a couple of things just for clarity, right? So what I see here, what I like is it closes the loop. So if I do some effort for the DAO, if that's shilling, or if that's just a nice article, or if that's chatting about it at a party or whatever, somebody can actually go into did I have it correct? There's a praise channel. So somebody goes to the praise channel and goes, at Skulk really did a good job doing XYZ. And the thing like keeps track of, at Skulk has been mentioned once. And then other people can somehow respond to that. So they can upvote that or something, right? And somehow I'm assuming that gets factored into it, right? So in other words, if I just go there and I praise myself, the bot would probably count that as a 0 or maybe even a -1. But and if somebody else comes at like 1 point, but if 10 other people comes, maybe that becomes like more disproportionately ranked. Is that mechanism correct for how
Yeah.
the
I mean,
reward-
the ones that I've used don't have the scaling, so the reactions to a certain praise. But so the idea is you cannot praise yourself in general; somebody else has to praise you.
Mhm.
And I don't think there's a scaling mechanism involved. So instant by reactions. So I don't know. Let's say all of us agree that Skulk did something awesome, and we want all of this to be visible in the system. Each of us would have to make a separate praise. But if you rely on Discord, you can actually modify any bot that monitors reactions to anything very easily to actually take reactions into account. So it's definitely doable.
Right.
Okay,
So
and
you
the
get
second
5
thing-
thumbs up, and the thumbs ups would, well, you'd want to use something else other than thumbs up, maybe something a bit more off the track. But then you would, yeah, that's how Metagame does it. They have certain reactions that indicate and that people understand. So you end up with a community that actually uses certain reactions as tools to explicitly and very easily show support. I mean, it's so easy if you see something and there's like 5 golden stars. Let's say you just click on the star and there you go, you've added your support, and yet you're voting in an interesting way. It's like the most low effort voting there is, I suppose.
Yeah, I think so.
And also what it does, okay, so that's the first thing it does, like it just counts the praise. The second thing is basically it introduces appreciation as a form of payment. So other people can appreciate you, right? So your tribe goes, oh, you hunted good goat yesterday. It was a very tasty goat, like, thank you. I do try, right? And then the third thing is it closes the loop in terms of remuneration. So in other words, the fact that I did something, I went out, I was just excited. I now actually get an additional dopamine hit to actually go, wow, these guys appreciated me, and I am getting, carrots in addition to the goat that I sort of like brought there. Right. So basically closes that loop to have those parts correct.
Yeah.
Cool. I really like that. That's very, very cool. I like that I like this. And I like that it's already hard for me to think how I would Sybil attack this, because you'd have difficulty doing it in Discord to Sybil attack it. You can't praise yourself, it would be difficult. It would be difficult to fake. I like it.
Cool. Well, let me end the call here. I got to run and I still have to upload the demo day. So let me end it here. Any last thoughts before we end the recording?
Well, people, look at Fry. Fry is awesome. Join us.
Very good. Yes.
Oh,
and smash that like and subscribe button, please. Just
yes, smash that like and subscribe button.
Gently caress the subscribe button.
But smash the like one. Yeah.
Smash the like button.
and activate alerts, all alerts.
Yes,
the time.
That's the only way we can reach you. The man is against us. They're against us. They're planning a cyber attack. Can you hear me?
Alrighty. Okay. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.